Thank you, Senator Warren, and thank you for your line of questioning, because what we're hearing is staggering. And it's pretty clear that at least two things have to happen. One is that the MBTA needs to meet the FTA's specific action requirements swiftly and comprehensively to ensure the safety of the T. And two, the DPU needs to start taking seriously its safety oversight of the MBTA. I agree with Senator Markey. The DPU has not been a watchdog. The DPU has become a regulatory black hole into which all of the safety issues fall, even though they're supposed to be identified and then cleared up in terms of the operations of the MBTA. And that has not happened. There is a huge regulatory black hole that exists. And now I'd like to open up a third item. The MBTA needs to clearly and transparently communicate with the public. Simply put, I think it's been alarming to the T's riders how often the MBTA has not communicated simple facts about its operations or its safety incidents. And I'd like to focus on a specific example, the Orange Line shutdown. Mr. Poftak, on August 19th, when the Orange Line shutdown began, you said that the shutdown that the T riders would have to endure would guarantee a faster service on the Orange Line. At a press conference on September 13th, 6 days before the Orange Line was supposed to reopen, you said the Orange Line will get faster. The only caveat is that it's going to take a couple of days. But according to Transit Matters data, Mr. Johnson's organization, that has not been the case. Before the shutdown, residents traveling from my hometown of Malden to Boston's Haymarket Station on the Orange Line could plan for about a 13-minute trip. Currently, nearly 1 month after the conclusion of the Orange Line shutdowns, that trip is taking about 21 minutes. A shocking 60% increase in travel time. Mr. Johnson's head is nodding. Mr. Poftak, is service faster on the Orange Line since the shutdown?
I think you've empirically demonstrated it's not. And the statements that I made were based on the work that we did as part of the search. And that work was successfully completed, and the places where that work was done indeed have had slow zones lifted. What I failed to communicate, and I'll take responsibility for this. What I failed to, I think, fully comprehend and then fully communicate in a way that was digestible to the public was that our track engineers, as part of their work, not only inspecting the work that had been done on the track in that stretch, and it's really that stretch from North Station to Assembly that is the one that has the most significant slow zones. In the course of doing their work, they identified other areas that they wanted to work on, and they felt like it was important to work on those areas previous to the winter, where a track repair is significantly more difficult. And indeed, that work is now underway. It is being done, it's typically being done on the overnight, but you need to have a slowdown in place in order to do that work. I failed to properly communicate that. However, I do continue to stand on the principle that I want my track engineers to feel that they have the agency. If they identify something that they want to work on, regardless of whether or not we take a hit in terms of public credibility, the priority has to be safety, and we will continue to prioritize safety. Obviously, it has come at an expense with our customer base in terms of credibility.
So I live 5 blocks from the Malden station. Malden High School last year, 25% white, 25% black, 25% Latino, 25% Asian. In other words, your constituency, a changing constituency, and one that is very dependent upon the T. He said young people going to Bunker Hill Community College, UMass Boston, they're using the T to go to work in a restaurant in Jamaica Plain. The Orange Line runs from Malden to Jamaica Plain. And so that becomes a way in which people can get educated, can go to work, can visit their relatives. But it's essential that it be working. So the MBTA does not release comprehensive speed data so that those people can understand how fast it's running. They should not be dependent upon Mr. Johnson and his organization. We thank him for doing it. Will you commit to releasing data on average train times on the T so that the public can see it in the same way they can see how long it takes for a plane to take off and actually land and have some idea as to what adjustments their families are going to make? Will you release data on average train times on the T?
I think that's a fair request, yes. We will release data on average train times.
Okay. I think that is absolutely essential for families. So the extra travel time is actually now affecting families in a dramatic way. A 60% increase in the time it takes for them to travel is very significant. The next question which I have is, from my perspective, is there a point at which the MBTA has overpromised? And what went wrong with the Orange Line? And why wasn't the problems with the Orange Line in terms of the completion of the work that you said you were going to complete in that 30-day period communicated to T riders so that they could make plans that were adjusted to the much longer time that obviously it's taking to complete the Orange Line? Why was that not communicated to the traveling public?
I think just to be clear, everything that we said we were going to do during the 30-day surge was done. There was additional work that was identified. I think there was a failure. In internal communication to fully comprehend the impact on our riders, and a failure on my part, not only to that comprehension, but also to communicate it in a way that was broad-based and effective. I know we've had a bunch of sessions with various media members, but clearly the message did not get out in a way that was digestible to customers, and I acknowledge that has a customer-facing impact.
Okay, on September 13th, you said that during the shutdown, you were guiding 6 critical slow zones along the Orange Line, adding, we are confident that we can get those 6 pulled off. In the past week, you acknowledged that the MBTA is continuing to work on the Orange Line, including efforts to alleviate the slow zones between Tufts Medical Center and Back Bay stations. The MBTA also said last week that it still needed a machine to go over the newly replaced track in order to ensure it is properly settled. To me, that sounds like critical work to alleviate the slow zones, which you stated would be done during the month-long shutdown back in August and September. If you knew the shutdown was not going to fully fix these slow lanes and get the Orange Line back to full speed, you should have communicated that to the public at that time so that they could understand what the impact on lead lines was going to continue to be. Why did you not do that? Why did you not give all of that information at that time to the public?
I draw a distinction between 2 things. There was the 6 zones that we identified where indeed the work was completed and we have been able to lift the slow zones. There was additional work, some of it somewhat adjacent to at least one of those work areas in the North Station to Assembly Square area that became follow-on work that I think we talked about in some detail. And then there's the distinction between, we were able to lift the slow zone on one of the sections between, we define slow zones as a 10-mile-an-hour speed restriction. We were able to lift it to 18. We are now working out a process with the FTA about what additional work we would need to do to get up to a 25-mile-an-hour which is sort of the as constructed speed. So we have lifted the slow zone from 10 to 18, but there's an ongoing discussion, and then there'll be a work plan to follow to get to that 25 mile an hour posted speed.
Right. And my only point is, you should have just said that. People in Malden could understand it. You need more passengers, you need more machines to be able to ensure that the tracks are settled. Just tell them that. But you didn't do that. You know, they were assuming it was going to be faster because you said it was. So, let me ask you this. People want a specific date. On what specific date, Mr. Poftak, will service on the Orange Line be faster than it was before the shutdown as promised?
And I cannot give a specific date because that is dependent on not only field conditions, but also the judgment of our field staff and our inspection staff. And I feel that it is my duty and my responsibility as a leader of this organization to prioritize safety. And if I put a date in place, it doesn't prioritize safety. It puts pressure on field staff to make a decision that is not based on what is the safest condition in the field. It forces them to make a different decision. And so I regret that I can't give you a date, but I hope that explanation gives some texture to why.
Mr. Poftak, following this hearing, will the MBTA publicly release a list of the work that still needs to be done to get the Orange Line up to full speed? Yes or no?
Yes, we can do that.
You can do that. And I think that is critically important because I don't think we're talking about days or weeks. We're talking about months before the Orange Line is running faster than it was before. Thank you, Senator.
Thank you, Senator Markey.